When it comes to EVE Online, every player wants to know the most effective tactic available. You want to know the meta. The meta controls everything. It determines what will and will not happen. Knowing the meta will alter your views, make you question your reality. It might even make you laugh. And now, you're part of it. You're watching The Meta Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Meta Show. It is Saturday, November the 28th, the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I am Brisker Ball. I am joined alongside the Matani. If this were the Tonight Show, it's Johnny and Ed McMahon. I'm Ed. We're here. If you get that reference, you're of a certain generation, and I approve of you. But we're here. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, and we're joined by two of the most smashingly talented members of the Imperium that have ever lived. Jay Amazingness and Merkel Chin. Thank you guys for joining us on the show today.
I don't know if we're supposed to force them to say something or what.
They don't have to say anything. They're just here. We're looking at them.
They can quietly nod with their competence. Yeah. So
I'm so happy to be here right now.
Okay, so pretty wild week today. Wild week today, last week tonight. I have no idea. It has been a very busy week in space. We actually have a ton of news to go over. We have a couple guests, which we haven't had in a while. We have the ISRAD #1 penis smash trap plan, the Kobe dunk, which had absolutely nothing to do with anybody except for penis smash whatsoever. And so as a result, we have Jay Amazingness here to talk about it. So that's going to be fun. We have general war update stuff involving all the activity in T5ZI. I posted a war update, and we're probably going to be mentioning that because that was earlier in the week, and I've noticed that the puppies haven't really noticed that we've posted a war update, and I think that people should read it because I wrote it and I spent a long time on it, and or I said a lot of really mean things about Legacy, and I want to make sure that Legacy gets to see the mean things that I said about them in written form. So just going to get that out right at the start of things. If you are tuning in because you are one of the bad guys and you want to make fun of my haircut, which apparently was a thing last week, we're starting to do the phase of the war where people are like, oh, the Matani looks tired. Ooh, he hasn't shaved yet. So yes, I haven't shaved yet. I am in the middle of a pandemic and my hair could be a bit better. I acknowledge that. We're all friends here. I acknowledge that.
I think you look great today. It looks very combed.
I think I look pretty fucking good. I gotta say. But
I fixed your camera too.
Before the show, Brisk was like, we need to take 5 to 10 minutes before the show early to try to fix Mrs. camera, which is like a recurring problem on the show. And of course, I turned up 1 minute before the show started and then saw that he wanted me to turn up early. So I apologize. That is entirely my fault.
The best part was Mark said you were going to show up a minute early. So we already knew this was going to happen. It was fun.
Good.
The prophecy was true. I mean, who would have ever guessed it?
Who could have possibly seen this coming? Instead of me doing a whole soapbox about this, because basically people are either going to read the fucking war update or they're not. But if you are one of the bad guys and you're tuning in, Brisk, could you link the INN version so we can just skip the whole me repeating myself thing?
Done.
And if thank you. And if the puppies want to read it, they can read it. I say a lot of mean things about Test. Don't spread this around, please. But I actually say some kind of nice things about PanFam and Horde, which is very, we're being very quiet about that. But if you are part of that, I do kind of like throw Test under the bus a whole bunch. It's highly entertaining. I might have complimented some of our enemies, not all of them. Don't spread it around, but you can read it on the war update if you feel like it. Brisk, do you have a soapbox before we get started?
Before we get into the war update, because the one thing I will say about the war update, and then I got to jump into my soapbox, it's a very quick one, is every other State of the Alliance, every meta show, every statement publicly made by anybody in this war on either side has immediately gotten leaked to Reddit within like the first 5 minutes after the thing was printed. And this one, which is amazing, well-written, informative, has a lot of good information in it, we had to leak it ourselves because these guys didn't even do it. You're not going to mention, look at what we're telling you.
I mean,
it's not going great, and we're having trouble. Oh my God.
I don't blame them. I mean, I thought that actually I would get, I thought it would leak immediately because I did actually say some nice things about PanFam, but I did it in such a nasty way to test that I think that everybody just sort of acted that they were sort of confused and surprised. That or they didn't like the war update. I have no idea, but it didn't leak.
I thought it was great. I liked it.
I'm running it up the flag poll. You can read it or you cannot if you are a member of PASPy. So hopefully you enjoy it. Unless you're in test, in which case I hope you eat my ass.
We will talk real briefly about, we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yep.
My soapbox is very brief. My CSM 15 co-member, Mike Azaria, friends with Mark and I, has been running every year for the last 6 years. He has been running Operation Magic School Bus. This is a thing that he does where he goes out and works with new players that are brand new to the game, gets them acclimated into EVE Online. He starts mainly with players that are legit new players, 30-day-old players or less, gets them free ships, free stuff, teaches them about the game, gets them involved, gets them out there, helps them find a corporation. He's been doing this for 6 years as of November 30th, which is on Monday. And so every year, he takes 1 month, just the month of November, where he takes and collects donations to help provide this service to new players. So I wanted to give a shout out to Mike. I'm going to be donating $10 billion after the show to help this out. I hope you guys will join me in donating to Operation Magic School Bus. One of the things we absolutely need as EVE players is we need to get as many new players in the game and sticking around longer than 30 days, because the longer that they stick around, the more likely they stay around. And then there are new players for you to play with. There are new bad guys for you to shoot. There are new good guys to help you stay alive. We want to get new blood into the game. So if you want to donate along with me, like I said, I'll be doing $10 billion after the show. Mike Azariah in game. I will link his name so that you can find it. He's also all over the CSM forum along with me. This is not a scam. The guy's legit. He's been doing this for 6 years. And he's provided a lot of good stuff for a lot of players. A lot of people love him because of what he did. And he was able to parlay that into a CSM victory. So that tells you right there, it's not like people don't know who he is, because you wouldn't have won if he was scamming a bunch of people like that. So anyway, I hope you join me in donating to Operation Magic School Bus. And with that, let's get back to the war stuff and talk about the war update. So Mittens, can you give us the TLDR on the war update?
Well, let's see. So the short version of the war update, let's see, there wasn't really a short version because it was really goddamn long. Basically, a general overview of where we stand. The important part is that we have, let me think. Let me see how to do this. I can just reiterate everything I've already said on the war update and then sort of annoy everybody by repeating myself. Let me see if I can get a TLDR of it.
Can you please give us a novel speech that we've never heard before? Thank you.
Oh God, yeah, something that I haven't like, after several hours of firesides. Yes, Jay is back from peeing. So
welcome back, Jay. You're just in time to listen to Mittens read his war update for us.
I mean, the short answer of it is essentially, there have been indications from, how do I want to say this? Our enemies are, in many cases, some of them are running out of ISK, some of them are getting disbanded, and some of them are actually achieving their war goals. People are getting to the point now where people are looking around on, particularly the PanFam side, and going, okay, well, we have kicked the shit out of a ton of Goonswarm assets and blown up tons of stuff. They're going to try to make a play for 1DQ1. But also, Test is in a bit of a pickle because they bet everything on this T5ZI thing. You know what? Actually, I'm gonna do something really strange and unusual. Instead of trying to spin zone this stuff, I'm simply gonna say, I'm not going to say anything new about the war update. If you want to see what I think about the war update, read the damn war update. And then beyond that, why don't we move into something else? Because I'm just going to be repeating myself and I'll be accused of spinning one way or the other. So read the war update if you care about it. It has been linked. It is the first time I've written a war update in probably I don't know. Time is a blur at war. So it's been a number of months. Maybe there'll be something in there you like to read. Maybe there'll be something in there that you will be pissed off about depending on where you are. I'm happy with either scenario. So I think that's really all there is for me to say about it.
All right, so we're going to go, skipping the war update, we're going to go into and do our top story of the week, which is going to be, obviously for us, it's the Thanksgiving Day turkey shoot that happened on Thanksgiving.
Hell yeah.
So, obviously, you guys know that Test has moved next door to 1DQ and T5Z. They set up a Keepstar there, the Keepstar Online last week, and they have begun moving assets in. They've been using that as a way to harass those of us who live in 1DQ over the last couple of weeks. But one of the things that they forgot to realize was, yes, you guys are right next door to 1DQ. You can come and mess with us in 1DQ all the time. But we can mess with you in T5Z all the time.
You're also right next to 1DQ. Yeah, exactly.
So it's like one of those things like, we're trapped in here with you. No, you're trapped in here with us.
Oh, yeah.
And I think one of the things we've been waiting for and we were expecting was people playing stupid games and winning stupid prizes. And that happens all the time in EVE. And I think, unfortunately for our dear friend in Pandemic Legion, it happened to him. And probably the biggest kill mail in Merkel Chen's storied EVE career, because we have two of the guys here that were there. Jay was one of the FCs in charge of working out this op, and Merkel Chen got final blow on the Rev. So this was I'm going to link the kill mail in the chat. This was a very expensive faction ship, probably the most expensive Rev that's ever been lost. And I wanted to have Jay, who was one of the pivotal figures behind this, walk us through the story leading up to the kill, what happened, and how it played out. So, Jay, can you tell us what happened with this fight?
Yeah, sure. Sorry,
We're all ears. Okay.
So, over the last few days, we've noticed a lot of, not just that super carrier pilot, but a lot of them aggressing our harassment fleets we've been taking out. So, Thrasher fleets, mostly ganking like industrial sinos and regular sinos, and they would always aggress, and patterns get noticed and things like that. And the Revenant's a very easy kill. Have a lot of tank, and when we scanned his fit, actually we used a couple spy characters to scan his fits over a few days, and we saw it was a pretty officer fit, so pretty bling, and it was also not very well tanked, so very easy kill. And was to go for 2 Revenants, but I fucked up tackling it.
Well, there's always next time. Can you tell us something about sources and methods? I don't know how much you want to go into, but could you tell us the story of how you planned this, or how your team planned this, or what went into bringing this process about that you're willing to tell in public?
So I've been playing a lot of Among Us recently. There's a meta tactic called third impostering. There's, even if you're not the imposter, you act like kind of an idiot, and you sort of get, you sort of help the imposters. I applied a character to the Pandemic called Third Imposter and injected it into a heavy interdictor. Then I entered the Revenant as soon as he aggressed our little bait fleet.
So seriously,
from there it was just a matter of jumping into Dreadnoughts and killing him.
You got a character into Horde, a day one character into Horde named Third Imposter without any issues.
Oh, I've got there are more hilarious characters in Horde that will probably be Kill Mouse soon, hopefully. That we have better names, but that one's pretty good.
I like it. It makes me laugh. So, what was this guy doing with this Rev? I mean, it seems to me like, at least from what I saw on the kill mail, going back through his kills, he was YOLOing this thing all around T5Z for the last couple days.
Sit on the undock, and every time we'd warp in our Thrasher fleet to kill a Sino, he'd just drop fighters and try and kill 2 or 3 of us. If you're going to do that over and over again, it's going to be pretty easy to tackle. Especially when you have lions called Pandemic Horde living in the same keep store as you, because they will accept anyone and risks in that.
Yeah.
So we get the guy tackled, and you guys dread bombed in. How many folks were aware of what was going on? I mean, was this broadcast widely? Hey, everybody get in fleet, or was this like a handpicked group of people that you guys put together?
I invited the OC fan club known as ISRAD, and also had our own little internal group, and obviously Merkelchen to be the water boy.
There you go.
It was actually so I was celebrating the holidays in the way that I find most pleasing to me. And the guys were all like, Mittens, like, log on Mumble, like, you gotta, like, oh, was this happening now? And I could barely get a sentence out, and so I managed to log on and like listen to it go down, like the rev being called primary, and then everything happened. And I think all I could say at the time in terms of congratulations was something like, well, I think I tried to say this is amazing, congratulations, but it might have come out just like, this is awesome, guys. But yeah, it was very much very cool to see in an event. And it's something that the enemy needs to be aware of. Like, they're staging right next door to us, and if you're acting like, I mean, I said this in the war update, and then it's been proven correct in the next couple of days, and now I'm very confident. And before, I was just sort of saying this as a supposition, right? Because you're going to look like an idiot if you're like, hey, T5ZI was a mistake, and then 1DQ1 gets burned down or something like that. When I posted the war update, it was just like a day or two after T5ZI went up, and I said, I think it's a strategic overreach, especially because goons love burn Jita, and the idea of just instantly getting into a fleet of a bunch of destroyers and then being able to gank pubbies literally right next door, especially when we can infiltrate the organizations that are in that Keepstar and have our own tackle on deck whenever we want it. That's kind of cool. And so I think it has worked out really well. Again, it doesn't mean that the bad guys are not going to attempt to burn down 1DQ1. It doesn't mean that everything is peachy keen. But one of they really fucked up. I think that YZ9 was a position where they had they could have tactical distance, or maybe strategic distance at this point, by staging in YZ9. But when they moved to T5ZI, especially when they're like, hey, we're going to be abandoning Esoteria, guys, everybody move into T5ZI, and then not really abandon Esoteria. It's just been, we get to haze them whenever we want to, or try to haze them. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But they are right next door in their main staging system. So obviously, if 1DQ1 burns down, it was fine, I guess. But if it doesn't, and they keep losing mass, and the bad guys are still outnumbering us a bunch. But this is a very interesting situation where the common goon line member can log on and immediately haze nerds right next door whenever they want. And the other thing is this: nothing pisses off goons quite like close contact with puppies, right? Like, it's just matter and antimatter, right? And so when they're a little bit further away, even if it is an NPC delve, it's still a scenario where like you fight the bad guys on ops. You see them on ops. You see them when you're flying around and doing your thing. But with them staging right next door, it is just like this hyper dense ball of infuriation between both sides. And then goons flood out of 1DQ1 and gank the hell out of everything. So we'll have to see how it goes. But I'm looking forward to more dunks schemed up by Penis Bash or whoever is ultimately responsible for these antics.
So a couple more things I want to go through. First of all, I'm going to be a journalist for a second, and I'm going to ask the most journalistic question I can think of. And that is, Merkelchen, how did you feel when you got the final blow on that Revenant on Thanksgiving Day?
I'm really glad that you asked me that question. Thank you. The op itself was really fun because it was one of those where somebody's like, hey, join this fleet really, really quick. You join it. 60 seconds later, they're saying undock, and 20 seconds later, a Revenant's dead. It was that fast. I mean, if anybody had any doubts on what the EHP changes have meant for supers. I know this thing wasn't totally tanked, but it was pretty unbelievable how quickly it went down. There was a subsequent Titan the Leviathan afterward that a lot of people forget. That damn thing.
Oh, a bonus Titan. That's right.
Well, that was the other, exactly the other thing. We got a Titan kill from Test at the same time.
In the words of our esteemed friends on the cleanup fleet on that Keep Star, undock, you do dumb things, you win stupid prizes, right? So you just it happened really fast. It felt really good. And the thing was, I was going to throw out a kill mail bounty. This is just something dumb that we do when we have like a tower shoot or a structure shoot. When it gets really boring and I can see everybody's eyes are glazing over and they're about to start falling asleep, I'll be like, you know what? We'll pay $5 billion for whoever gets a kill mail on this thing. I was right about to say something and I saw it pop on by myself. So I pinged really quickly that I was giving away $500 billion for whoever got the kill mail. And people were like feverishly hunting for the kill mail. And it was nice.
That shit never gets old. It is right. Actually there is something and I'm not sure, are we talking about the Doom clock? Oh, sorry, Jay, you go.
I can share some other like hilarious little tidbits from that
Yeah.
if you want. So DBRB was our loot boy. We have DBRB has this unburned horde, like DBRB the most very subtle about things, and he has this unburned horde spy that he's had for years. Every horde super we've killed, he's always looted it somehow. Horde spy. We're going to do the same again. And he was so busy focused on getting the loot and stuff, because I kept yelling at him to get the loot. Got to siege his Phoenix and didn't do any damage to either the Levy or the Revenant.
Yeah, the Revenant vaporized so quickly, not everybody could actually get on the mail. Yeah, this has been one of the other things that did come up in the war update, and something that I think, are we going to talk about the Doom Clock? Because the Doom Clock has been getting some pretty hilarious action. We're going to do that a little bit later on the show. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to get there. We're going to get there.
They asked me to not have my lights messed, having me like turn ever more pale vampire. And so normally I would have a bright show notes thing up here that shows me what we're going to be talking about, but it would fuck up the lighting. So that's my excuse for not knowing when we're going to be talking about the thing I'm supposed to talk about.
All right. So we're going to go right now after finishing up the turkey shoot, which honestly, guys, look, this was a slow news week. There wasn't a whole hell of a lot going on in terms of the war. In fact, other than a couple of iHub fights back and forth, this was the big thing. And I mean, frankly, there's only been a handful of Revenants that have died. I think maybe 20 total in the history of Eve. And I will say this. This is the other thing I want to bring up. The first Revenant loss ever was also lost by Pandemic Legion. And it was 7 years ago in July. And if you guys have heard the This Is Eve, This Is Really Eve video, when Grath Telkin is screaming through his jacked up mic, "You are the AIDS that is rotting the Alliance from the inside," that was because a guy was YOLOing a Revenant around and got killed by Black Legion. And then 7 years later, PL doing the same thing, YOLOing Revenants around, gets killed by Goonsform right next door. And they were right next door. It was just, it was funny. So I wish Grath was here. I hope Headliner raged out like he's supposed to, because that would be a great bookend. I wish we had video of that. It would be great. I'm going to link the video to the Rev Kill in the chat here when we go to the next story. See if you guys want to watch that later. Don't watch it now, because you're watching the Meta Show. But we're going to go into our Nullsec Power Hour. We got a bunch of news to talk about in terms of like general stuff. We're going to talk about how the war's going. We're going to talk about Doom Clock, and we're going to talk about the nonsense with the DYS Corp that left Goons earlier. So here we go. Nullsec Power Hour.
All right.
And we are back. So the first thing one of the things that was included in Mitten's update, war update, and he's going to talk about this now, is the Doom Clock that we put together. And that's essentially that the way that the way that Test has been fighting this war. Horde's been fighting, they fight all the time. And we'll go into that in a little while.
Horde has been doing the yeoman's work in this war,
exactly.
Which I do say in the war update. So if you're a Hordeling, there's nice things for you to read in there. If you feel
bad, if you're a Horde member and you're watching this show and you have a pain in the small of your back, it's because you've been carrying Test for the last 6 months. So I'm sorry.
It's
But
true.
we're gonna highlight that later because I got some data.
And they've been doing a very good job. Horde has been doing a very good job of carrying tests.
If anybody can be said to have really hurt the Imperium's ability to generate ISK and our wealth caches, it is Horde. But we'll get to that in a little while. But the point I wanted to make is that the way the Test has been fighting, they have been very conservative, as I've said, little c, over the last 6 months. And one of the things that they're only willing to do is they're only willing to take Keepstar fights when they have been able to capture an iHub, keep it up for 35 days, and online a Sinojammer. So one of the things that Goons has done, and Mittens is going to talk about it, is created this Doom Clock for our Keepstars around New Eden, not just in Delph. Take it away.
Yeah, so basically, in terms of a strategic overview of the progress of the war, I believe that this war is the Imperium's to lose now. And what that means is that I think that we are on course to win our war. There are, essentially, there's a strategic bind that the Pan-Famine Legacy forces are facing as it relates to Legacy's requirements on when they engage and when they attack our Keepstars. And everything I'm saying here could just be completely rendered irrelevant if they sort of turn up tomorrow and start attacking our Keepstars. But thus far, the enemy strategy has been consistent for the last 6 months of this war, which is both PanFam and the Legacy forces are at extreme danger if they don't have the super capital support from one another in any given hypothetical Titan or super fight. Legacy has made it clear that they need to have jammers up before they will risk their super caps because they have a reasonable expectation that we will primary the shit out of Test Alliance and annihilate everything that they have, even if we end up like losing the fight or something, because we can pretty much like, annihilate at least any one of these organizations in a big fight. We believe. They believe it too. So what we have here is a scenario where the enemy has come into Delve, they've staged in T5ZI, and they have to kill our jammers, kill our iHubs such that we can't jam things, and then hold the iHubs for 35 days for each one of these things. So in order to keep track of what we are calling the Doom Clock, one of our amazing developers threw together a Doom Clock website that allows us to keep track of which of these systems have been hit, which of these systems have not been hit, where do we have Keepstars there where there's a hostile iHub and we need to snap things before it hits 35 days. And we have been doing, even before we created the Doom Clock, a very, very good job of this. So this is something that I'm highlighting on the Meta Show, and it's something that isn't necessarily visible to, I mean, it's visible to line members of the Imperium now because we've been talking about it and we made this Doom Clock. But I don't think it's something that's necessarily visible to the line in PASP as a whole or whatever. So the way this works is we have been killing hostile hubs over and over and over again and resetting this Doom Clock, and such that they have, the exception of the 49 Keepstar. And I think there was kind of a funny little irony. The 49 Keepstar, they did get a hub up and they did destroy that Keepstar. We failed to defend it. There was a tree that fell on Asher's house, but I think that eventually we would have probably lost the 49 Keepstar, tree or no tree, simply because the enemy did get a jammer up. So it's very important for us to maintain a watch on the Doom Clock. Keep resetting these things. The amusing irony about the 49 Keepstars, I believe the Titan, the person that got the final blow on our 49 Keepstar was the Leviathan that got blown up during the Kobe dunk. So there's very much a revenge angle there, which I find, we didn't know that at the time. I think that's just the whelp gods are smiling on us. So the reason why I think that Goonswarm and the Imperium is on track to win our war, which I distinguish from there's 3 war goals here. There's the PanFam war goal, there is the Imperium war goal, and then there's the Legacy war goal. The Legacy war goal is the extermination of Goonswarm. There are no goons, they're toxic, they're evil, get them rid of the game. The PanFam war goal is kick our asses because we've kicked their asses in the past, and because we're the Imperium, we have to fight against the worst of the war goals, right? Like, we cannot fight for our survival against annihilation itself without also losing tons of assets and fighting and having a bunch of our shit get blown up, right? So however, when it comes to executing Legacy's war goal, which involves annihilating all of our stuff, wiping out all of our Keepstars, getting goons to quit the game, all of the toxic, hypocritical, really just pathetic stuff that's come from Pro God Legend, from Vili, I was very disappointed when Vili didn't disavow the things that Pro God has been saying. It's really sort of sad. But we are on track to win our war because these guys cannot maintain an iHub for 35 days. Now, maybe they will be able to hold their hubs for 35 days, get jammers up and blow up our Keepstars. And you can follow along at home, whether you are in the Imperium or whether you are part of the whole pass-p thing, you can watch the doom clock yourself and see that we are repeatedly resetting your iHubs, that you will not be able to hold them for 35 days, we hope, and that things are going quite comfortably there. So if they're unwilling to engage our keep stars and blow them up, then without having jammers there, then cool, we're good. So that's basically the significance of it. There's been a tremendous, and this is one of the reasons why it's sort of difficult to talk about it on the meta show in terms of like news, because we are seeing hubs trading back and forth on just every couple days, right? It's a constant process. So charting like, well, this one went here and this one was blown up and then this one was replaced and this one, whatever. Thus the doom clock. So that's sort of where we are overall in terms of the strategery of the war this week.
All right. So with that, I also wanted to bring up and to highlight what Mittens was saying. I did the math. As always, Brisk is the one who's out here doing the math. And I wanted to take a look at a number of different things to look at and see, who has been doing the bulk of the work in this war so far. All right.
Horde.
Obviously. The problem, though, is with the tools that we have available to us, it's very difficult to pin this stuff down. So I'm going to freely admit that this is a quick and dirty summary. It's not authoritative, but I think that our anecdotes along with this information makes it clear that if anybody is winning this war, and other than the jokes about, well, Fraternity's really winning because they're up there on Owasso making this, if anybody is winning this war on the battlefield, it is Pandemic Horde. And I got to give Gobbins and his crew a big attaboy. They have been the driving force behind PASP this entire time. And I want to just go through some of the numbers because I think, frankly, they're pretty stark when you look at it. First of all, Horde is the largest coalition member in the group. They're the largest of all of the PASP groups. They beat Test by like, I don't know, 6,000 or 7,000 members on paper. But in addition to on paper, they're also showing up to all of these fights more. And we've gone through some of this before. The first Keep Star fight in FWS TTAC, they brought almost twice as many people as Test did, despite the fact that they were coming from a farther distance. Test is next door in Esoteria, and Horde is based out of Geminate. They still had to come down. They had 730 people get on that Keep Star kill, and Test had around 400. So when it comes down to all of these fights, literally every single fight, the number one group that brought more people than anybody else on their side was Horde. Second Keep Star, 1226. Test brought 1,000. Third Keep Star, Horde brought 810. Test brought 585. The fourth Keep Star, Test brought 1,200, or Horde brought 1,242. Test brought 739 again. Jesus. Every single time they're showing up in greater numbers on these fights, and it's not just on these Keep Star fights, because obviously we don't know how many people would have been there when the Test Keep Star went up, the fifth Keep Star went up in YZ, because they stayed up. But if you want to look at the amount of work being done, first of all, let's look at what Horde has been able to do. Horde was the primary force behind Glassing Fountain. They took the lead in kicking in it at a fountain. Their first iHub taken in the war, the first Imperium iHub taken in the war, was taken by Horde on July 26th. Test did not take an iHub anywhere in New Eden until October the 2nd.
Wait,
3 months later.
Are you serious?
July, August, September, 3 months. It took them that long to even get one.
Holy shit.
I mean, it's all Dotland. You can check it on Dotland. It's ridiculous.
Well, I think Test got XZ TAC in the border of period basis. At some point, I don't remember where there was, because October might as well have been 6 months ago.
I'm pretty sure that was the one on October 2nd. I mean,
wow.
When you're looking at it, if you look at the Dotland numbers, you'll see Horde's numbers go way up and then they go back down as it takes Fountain back. Test numbers are completely straight, so they tick up, they go down a little bit, and then they tick up when they start taking period basis. But it was, I mean, literally, it took months after the first Horde guys were able to capture an iHub.
I guess Test was busy in Niarja, right? Because that was,
that's part
Test
of
fights for the little guys, so
Absolutely.
they were in Niarja doing an important gate camp while while Horde and PanFam did all the work. I mean, this is one of the reasons I was surprised that the war update didn't leak, because I thought that I would be eating shit for even acknowledging Horde's contributions to the war, right? Because obviously, if you're in a scenario as like the boss guy, leader of the Imperium or whatever, the last thing you want to do is admit anything. And like, I know that the spin drives the enemy crazy. So usually speaking, especially if I'm on the meta show or something, I'm going to spin like a motherfucker. And so to actually acknowledge, that they are getting to the point where they're meeting their war goals, which is to damage us for the stuff that we did to them a couple of years ago. I thought it would leak everywhere and that people would be like, oh, you're spinning and oh, how, but I think what's happened is that everybody who's been involved in this war for so long now on all sides can just see which side is doing the work. And it's not just Horde, right?
I got more too. If you want
more, okay.
This is the most
bring
striking.
the receipts. Show us the map.
This is the most striking. Now, granted, look, we all play Eve. We all know getting the final blow when Merkel Chen does it, it was skill. When anybody else does it, it's luck. So let me just say this: I'm going to use some data based on final blows received by a structure to talk about who got the most structure kills. Now, granted, obviously, there's a little bit of randomness to it, and it's not saying that there weren't tests on the field or there wasn't PanFam or other group on the field, but the more guys you have on the field, the better chances are that one of your guys gets the final blow on these structures. So let me walk you through this. Since the war has started, Test has gotten the final blow on 1 Keep Star, 14 Fortizars, and 4 Tateras. Okay? No Sodios. On the other side, on Horde side, Horde has gotten the final blow on 2 Keep Stars, 2 Sodios, 29 Fortizars, and 25 Tataras. I mean, they have gotten almost 3 times as many structure kills just on the big stuff. Horde has.
Wow.
Now, yes, final blow means nothing, but it does mean something. It means that you guys had folks on grid who were fighting and hitting that structure, and they got the last damage. The more guys you have in the fleet, the better chance you have of your guys getting the final blow. That's indisputable. So the fact is, these guys were out in big numbers. They were hitting these structures. They were obviously hitting more stuff in Fountain, and they were able to do stuff that nobody else was able to do. That's impressive. I got to give Horde credit. If there's anybody in this war that can walk away saying they had a significant impact on the Imperium's wealth, it is Pandemic Horde. And I got to take my hat off to you because you guys have done better than anybody expected you to do. And you absolutely deserve all the attaboys. And your ostensible Alliance leadership likes to talk a lot, but they don't like to show up very much. And if I were a Horde guy, I'd be kind of annoyed with the fact that that's the case.
I mean, their Alliance leadership shows up. You mean the Legacy guys aren't really...
They show up for the shows. They don't show up for the fleets. The hard work, the week when you got to bust your ass and do the hard stuff and go through and do the boring stuff and do the structure grind and do the iHub grind, it's Horde members out there doing that. So give those guys credit when you see them.
All right. Yeah, so I mean, it's one of those things where like... I think it's useful to back up our arguments that like Legacy got everybody into this war. Oh my God, there are no goons, all this toxic bullshit. But there is actual evidence of, we have receipts that indicate it's not just bullshit spin when we're saying that one side coalition wise is doing a vast majority of the work and the other side are basically being a bunch of parasites and freeloaders. But that's Test. I don't really think it's all that controversial at this point. So, what can we do?
All right, so that's kind of the war news. I mean, did you guys want to go through the DYS thing real quick? I mean, we don't have a lot of time. I want to get to Mercs. We don't want to do a Pierce in the Corporate Veil because we want to talk some CCP stuff today. One of the reasons why we had Merc here is we want to go through. He's got a message that he wants to relay to CCP that I think you all want to hear. So I think we want to get to that in a minute. But do we want to talk briefly about the DYS stuff? Because there was a lot of spin from Villy in particular about this Goon Corp that left or that was kicked. While they were in the process of defecting. Do you guys want to walk through what happened there and just set the record straight so that everybody knows actually what happened?
Oh, that thing. That was actually really funny. I was kind of surprised that Villy took to the skies on Reddit to try to make something about the dysfunctionals because it was a pretty minor situation. there was some confusion about one of their Fortizards or whatever. But basically what happened was we caught, because people in the Imperium are loyal, the CEO and two full directors of this 94 member corp, which I think had I think Sauronami used to be in this corp back in the day. Anyway, so very small corp, and their CEO and directors were planning on joining a PASP alliance called like Lord of Worlds or World Awards or Lord, the LORDE ticker. So they had basically planned to be traders, and they were planning on smuggling super caps out and flipping sides in the middle of a war. So it's not just that they were smuggling supers, they were smuggling supers specifically to the enemy. They were planning on jumping ship and joining the enemy, and they were going to try to loop their other directors in on this. They were conspiring. And one of the things about it that I thought was so funny, the person, the goon hero who caught this and told us what was happening and stopped it before it got anywhere, doesn't want me to put a spotlight on him or anything like that. But essentially what happened is that they were scheming on Discord, and they reached out to this goon hero, and it was one of the most amusing chat logs I've seen in a while, where one of the I think it was Akak Sunflyer or whatever, was basically saying, we have to be completely secret about this, because if Mittens catches us, he will commissar us, and then he will steal the line members. And basically saying they know what they're doing, they know it's treason, they know that I would commissar them immediately. And thankfully we caught it early, right? Because it hadn't gotten past these three individuals, the CEO and their two directors. The other director warned us what was happening, and we were able to take action. Unfortunately, when you have a member corp where you have a CEO going traitor, you just immediately have to shoot the member corp, right? Like, you can't let a CEO stay in the alliance while they're trying to be traitors. So what we did, of course, is we've dealt with this kind of thing before in peacetime and wartime. There's really nothing new about it to us. What do? Well, it's not the line member's fault. And in this case, we had evidence from the traitor director, CAC Sunflyer or whatever, confessing to this other director that the line members didn't know about this yet, that it was just the CEO, a CAC, and some other pork something or other, whose name I forget, some other trader director. So we purged them. We made sure that the line members were able to get rehomed into better corporations. And then Villy took to the skies howling about how this is a sign of cracks forming and like all this other sort of stuff.
Goons don't help in it again.
And yeah, like it was definitely an awkward look, because it turned out that Init, and this is a huge pain in the ass for them, but it's a huge pain in the ass for them because of the fucking dysfunctionals, the people who turned traitor. Init had staged a bunch of stuff in a dysfunctionals Fortizar, which obviously we had no idea about. And the corp went traitor, so you had to remove them because they were going to flip it to PL or whatever. Anyway, they had already gone over to the PASP side. So that was an unpleasant surprise. I'm not going to act like that wasn't an unpleasant surprise. It was definitely a treason cleanup in Aisle 3. It didn't get past those three directors. There was definitely collateral damage, but it was mainly more just like, okay, whatever, get out.
And on the Init side, I got to tell you this, because this is funny. Villy seemed to have been operating under the impression that we have been moving to NPC Fountain, moving non-essential stuff out of 1DQ to NPC Fountain for about 2.5 months now, as part of our campaign to take Fountain back and get ready for all the fighting that we're going to do in Fountain. Because we like that space. If we leave, we'll leave on our own volition. We're not going to get pushed out by anybody. Board wants to go in there and kill us again. They killed us before. That's fine. We'll hang out in the NPC stations and fuck with them for as long as we want. So YTAC 2 was on the route to YZ in NPC Fountain, which is our staging, and we're staging out of an NPC station. We literally only used that fort because it's closest to the gate as a midpoint for our jump freighters and other things that were going there. Nobody was staging any items in there. There were no massive numbers of assets, and none of that stuff was in there. I think Villy got confused between YZ and YTAC 2 because they both start with Y, and just assumed that this was Init staging because we're dumb enough to stage in a non-Goon WAF, non-Goon, holding corp, DJ's holding corp structure in territory we didn't control. We're not that dumb, okay? So those of us who had some assets that were in the process of being moved We click asset safety, and it went into asset safety, and 5 days later, it'll be in the Fort Azar that's controlled by goons there, and we'll move it back to YZ when we get there. So it had no real impact on it at all, other than maybe slowing down a move op for 5 days, which has been going on for 2.5 months of non-essential stuff. All of our combat stuff is still in 1DQ. All of our supers and titans are still in the same place, and we have stuff up there to run ops. We've been killing LSH, killing NSH, killing anything that's up there for fun while we do ops in Delve, but it wasn't a big deal. But for some reason, this became like a crazy thing, and I think it's because
grasping at straws so much.
That was
I was
it.
Shocked. He was like Billy left on this like a starving fat man after a Twinkie. Like it was some amazing. It was great too because like I think the very next day there was the Kobe dunk.
Exactly, blew it right off.
I was really surprised at it because again it's a 94 pilot member corp, and Billy's like, cracks forming, oh my god guys, cracks are forming.
A really active PvP corp with 10 people in it.
Billy is running out of options because his whole deal was that if they just post keep stars hard enough at us, we will give up and go away. He put T5ZI down. It failed. It has continued to provide a feed for us. The doom clock keeps getting reset. The bad guys do not have a path to victory. That does not, and to be fair, that doesn't mean the bad guys cannot win. But if their path to victory involves holding a hub for 35 days and then doing something, good luck. I guess the next straw they're going to grasp at is, oh my God, because the economy changes, goons are going to run out of ISK or something. I think we actually have, I'm going to try to segue us. I think we've got some things involving the economy and Merkelchen and some CCP.
We do.
News.
We're going to get there.
Where are we going to go?
We're going to go there right quick. The one last thing I wanted to say on this whole thing, the doom clock thing, the 35-day thing. That's the worst idea that I've ever really heard because you are ceding your advantage as the attacker to us.
And going on defense.
You're going on defense to defend
right in
these
our
hubs.
Home region. Yes.
And the one thing we've demonstrated and one thing that you can see from all of these fights is if you're the attacker, you only have to get it once. The defender has to be perfect every single time. Mm-hmm. So like on KTAC 6, all we got to do is catch you on one off night where you guys aren't paying attention and win that fight or bring more guys, and boom, we reset the clock for another 35 days. Not the best strategy. But anyway, we're going to segue real quick. We're going to go into Piercing the Corporate Veil. We got some CCP stuff to talk about with Merkelchen. So here we go.
All right.
All right, everybody. We wanted to talk about some CCP stuff. Before we talk about the CCP stuff, I would like to introduce the new segment that we are having for the first time today with our dear friend Merkelchen. Merk, how's the weather out there?
I'm so glad that you've asked. I've been standing here for, where are we at? 53 minutes, waiting for you to ask me how the weather has been. The weather here is fine. We do have weather where I live. I suppose many of you in chat likely also have weather where you live, and I hope it's treating you well. I'd like to talk to you about something today.
That weather report was brought to you by Sadis. Now, your real thing. Merkelchen has a message to CCP.
I do have a message. Let's
do it.
Sit down, get comfortable. We'll have a quick conversation together about some things that I think are worth mentioning. Maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe someone like CCP Burger or CCP Homar will hear us having this conversation together for the purposes of a quick discussion over EVE, the economics, all of this econ stuff that you're repeatedly hearing, the moving of this anomaly, the removal of this goo, the addition of this, but not in a place where you want it to be, et cetera, et cetera. So for the purposes of our conversation today, I have come here to you to talk about what I'm calling the Famine Expansion. And it doesn't get much more exciting than a famine expansion. Now, a lot of you have come to know the wonderful people from Iceland over the years. Obviously, EVE Online, significant portion of the folks who work for CCP are from Iceland. If you know anything about Icelandic people, you probably know they don't do anything the easy way. They're just sort of that kind of people. Uphill both ways in the snow. There's no word in the vocabulary for easy, but there's 50 words for snow. I think right now what we're all experiencing in EVE Online is that being taken a little bit too far and perhaps being pushed on to us, the EVE players. Bear with me, if you will, for just a moment. Let's keep talking. We're going to be focusing on economic changes, this self-inflicted recession that you're seeing pushed onto EVE Online through mineral resource reductions, etc. Recession, for any of you familiar with them in the real world, the rich people get a little bit less rich. Everybody else gets kind of fucked over, and it's not a very good time. Unemployment skyrockets, consumer confidence goes to shit, and activity overall begins to dissipate. What does that mean when you apply those to a video game where this is playing out? Not just necessarily clamping down on income. Every segment that you're seeing removed, relocated, or modified represented a play style that lots and lots of people probably enjoyed engaging in. As a matter of fact, as a person who sits in the position I sit in EVE Online, both as a CSM member and a leader of a really, really big corporation, I can tell you this is a fact. They did these things not as a second job, not for a sense of purpose. They did them for fun. So we have taken this whole economy thing and turned it into the no fun patch. What's next? Am I going to have to log into EVE Online and exercise? Am I going to have to pass through a TSA checkpoint, take my shoes off before the undock button can be pressed? Do I have something like my girlfriend cheated on me and I've got bed bugs in my pod patch to look forward to next weekend? Is this where we're going with all of this stuff? God knows that the real world couldn't be a more pleasant and fun place to be these days.
Right.
I know when I get off work, I go skipping home. I walk into my house. My wife and I sing a number from Hamilton. And then I go down to my gaming rig and I log into EVE Online for some good old-fashioned suffering, just what I need, because there's not enough of that to go around. To use an analogy, let's take it to World of Warcraft for a moment. You get that newbie quest, go kill the 10 wild boars, right? But no, you're in EVE Online now, my friend. There are no wild boars left out there. Yes, you got the quest and you need to turn them in. They're not out there anymore. But in fact, here's a twist. This is where it gets exciting. The wild boars are actually in Alterac Valley or the Arathi Basin, and you got to go get them. And oh, you're not a PvP player? You don't like doing that? You do now, if you want to get your wild boars. Let's jump over to Skyrim, if you will, for a moment. You're just waking up, feeling groggy, back of the wagon. Hey, you're finally awake. Only the wagon isn't taking you into Skyrim, the game that you wanted to play. It's taking you to Roller Coaster Tycoon. I know you didn't log in to play Roller Coaster Tycoon, but that is the destination of the wagon now. EVE Online is busy right now. It's busy pretending to be like this Keynesian scarcity economic horror show simulator that's playing out right now in real time. It's as if the budget and economy and EVE Online is treating itself sort of like a pensioner or a retiree who's 80 years old on a fixed income, unable to do absolutely anything about it except eat more potatoes, right? When in reality, CCP is an all-powerful central bank, has unlimited access to fiat currency, can do absolutely anything that they want. They have a fiat currency howitzer, right, with which to remedy a lot of these things. So rather than have the aspirational goals continue to be out there and continue to be something that people are going after, driving for, et cetera, there's now like this impossible cliff that we're expected to scale that we didn't want to scale, and we're going to have fun doing it. You know, the American government was hitting the fan with COVID. What did they do, right? Let's pass like a $4 trillion act to help stabilize the economy. That $4 trillion, Mike Pence didn't go to the backyard of the White House and dig that shit up in coffee cans, right? They fired up the IS printer, it went brrr, and there was money all of a sudden. We're talking about a goddamn video game right now. If the American government can do this and get away with it and can be a sound strategy, we can do a little bit better job of not starving the population for some kind of weird economic simulations. There was a time where Hilmar talked about Titans, like maybe you ram together 5 Titans and it becomes like a 10% better, even bigger, gianter Titan. It gives people something to do. In World of Warcraft, there would be like a heroic trinket, slightly incidentally better. Veterans would spend hundreds of hours grinding to get these things. This is what EVE Online needs to do. There can be a happy balance between the Monty Hall bullshit and getting the job done. It's as if we've just sort of, to use American currency as an analogy, we've burned all the 20s and the 50s, but we've left the hundreds, the 5s, and the 10s in the game. So if you're in that middle band of players, which I'm certain 80% of the players are, tough shit. It is what it is. Do Faction Titans fit that role? I know a lot of people ask about that. Faction Titans are kind of janky. The only reason that you see people get in them, and I can say this as a person who owned one of the most expensive Vanquishers in the game, I bought it because there was literally nothing else to spend my money on. Let's focus on that spot right there, rather than this weird austerity simulation that we're all going through together right now. The ESSs can still be cool. You do something like make a drone aggro change right now. People have been calling for that for years. But you know the time when you do that when you have engaging, fun PvE content ready to launch, ready for people to play in that moment. The reason people do things like watch Netflix and use the drone boats is because the content is absolutely stale and absurd at this point. If you're a player who's been playing for 10 years, you're on your 6,598th Haven, and it is exactly the same as every one before it. This is not a pathway to victory, my friends. I went on to think about it. You know, the entire thing creates this massive conundrum where we're going through this shared suffering together. It's got nothing to do with the war. The war has been a lot of fun, but things like, where are the battleships? Where's the battleship meta right now? Oh, can't do it. We're in hacks online right now. If you wanted to solve the economic problems of EVE Online, a great place to start would have been 3 or 4 years ago when the CSM reps were repeatedly bringing up, as can be corroborated in the public minutes, Rorquals are breaking the game. Please do something about it. If you keep Rorquals going the way they are, this whole thing is going to go to shit. We're going to lose control of the economy, and it's going to become like a fire hose that no one can get a hold of anymore. Thank you so much for coming to my TED Talk. I hope we can discuss ways that this can be done more sensibly, that is a whole lot more fun for the population that plays the game, because right now it's all stick, no carrot. I'm sick of hearing about the goddamn carrot. I don't have an appetite for carrots anymore. I've heard about them so much. Let's just get to what's next. Let's call this experiment what it is, bullshit. And let's move back to the way that WoW does it, the way that BDO does it, the way that every other video game does it. Raise the levels, make things more expensive, and we will march on together. Thank you so much.
There you go.
Fucking
Thank you, Mark.
preach.
I mean, that was glorious. That was glorious. And I have to echo the sentiment. I mean, the biggest thing, and I talked to a lot of people about the drone changes. The biggest issue with the drone changes is, why now? And I mean, I don't want this to turn into some issue of, well, I don't have a problem with what you said. I don't like the tone you said it. This isn't a tone thing. The reality is, when you're going to make a change to something that has been the same for years, that everybody relies on, that they know is going to be there, like the sun rising in the east, you make a change like that that's big. Yes, it's just, oh, you have to press F now. But you didn't have to do that before. And you didn't have to do that for years. And this became the meta. It was the reason why people did it. That you had multi-box VNIs, multi-box Ishtars, multi-box Gilas, where you could sit and watch a show and get around the boredom because the PvE in the game is boring. But I mean, What do you guys, in the chat, throw idea. What would make the PvE in the game not boring? I don't know. I try to rack my brain. What would make this fun? I don't know, because I don't play EVE for PvE. I play it for the PvP.
Well, I mean,
but I don't know what else they could do. But it's like you change something that critical, that fundamental, like the drone aggro, and you give people nothing to sweeten that pill, and man, it goes down like castor oil. It's just not good.
It's one of those things where the famine patch bit really stuck with me, right? Like, one of the things about this war that I have enjoyed, right? As much as this has been a very long war, it's been very grindy, it's been lots of slings and arrows and stuff like that, is that the war has been a really big distraction from 2020. Right? Like, if I'm thinking about winning a space war against impossible odds and ranting about PASPy and like people are making diss tracks, we're all sort of happy and distracted from the miseries going on in the real world. And to be fair, the real world is looking a little bit less shitty right now. They got the vaccine on the way. There's various bits of light at the end of the tunnel, depending upon your views on things. But regardless of that, one of the things that seemed very strange to me, I was stunned by the drone aggro change this week. It came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting it. And I had sort of been seeing a lot of the nerfs that CCP had been doing is aimed at nerfing nullsec empires, because CCP not liking nullsec empires is, unfortunately, is nothing new. And we're sort of used to having CCP constantly try to nerf us. But when it kind of seemed like a moment to me of like, oh shit, like that's kind of the drone thing is kind of like a third rail, right? Because when you hit that third rail, there's a lot of people in high sec, there's a lot of people who use drone boats to engage in PvE all across the game, and it's a lot bigger than just the nullsec stuff. And you got to be asking yourself at this point, when is CCP going to stop fucking with the ecosystem? Are they going to tell us when, like, hey, like we're done now? Are we going to get an all clear sign? And what do we have to look forward to? Is it just going to be more, go fuck yourself? Because, I found myself in a very interesting position on the fireside before the show today. And again, I don't want to seem like I'm being too nice to our enemies and like the broader, like, in the war stuff. When we're zooming back out and I'm not being like the Matani Herfblorf and we're talking about the video game EVE Online, what's good for it, what's bad for it. There are a lot of people who are very invested in the space war that's happening. I'm very invested. All of our people are very invested. All the people who are trying to kill us are very invested. It is an extremely unusual thing for me to get up in front of my people who are fighting against Legacy and PanFam and say, okay, guys, Brave had an announcement where they're saying that they need donations because they're running out of ISK, and I don't want you to be dicks about it because everyone is running low on ISK, and basically telling goons to not fling shit at Brave, because I think from a certain perspective, we are all collectively in this awkward position where we want to keep fighting the space war. We want to keep killing each other. But we saw this with the Requiem Eternal disband. We saw this with the Brave thing. And the Brave thing wasn't even all that wild and crazy. They're saying like, hey, we might need ISK donations. And we can't throw stones at them because why is everybody running out of ISK? Well, it's not because we're all converting it into spaceships and killing each other. We are doing that. But it's because CCP keeps nerfing everything. If from an Imperium perspective, Goonswarm, we have a finance team. We have very complicated financial instruments. We have all these methods of floating the Imperium, essentially, to keep fighting. But we are seeing, just like what Merkelchen was saying earlier, where the analogy of an economy where you only have $5 and $10 bills and then $100 bills, the sort of mid-range of organizations, they're just, Brave wants to keep killing us, right? Brave does not actually want out of the war. They want to keep killing us, and that's fine. We should be fighting each other on the fucking battlefield and doing that. And it's just a really weird situation to be 6 months into this war. And I guess I should be happy. I guess I should be like, hey guys, this is great. Our enemies are going bankrupt or whatever. But if we win, and I fully intend to win this war, I believe the Imperium's path to victory to win our war, as I said in the war update, is golden. It's our war to lose now. But it kind of makes it a little bit less of a victory if part of the reason why we would win this thing and survive against impossible odds is just because CCP bankrupted all of our enemies, tried to bankrupt us, and then we're just like, okay, well, guys, this kind of sucks. Well, see you guys over there. High fives all around. So I had to tell people to just not be shitty about our enemies going in front of a goon swarm fireside. Don't be shitty to our enemies because they are running out of ISK, because CCP is fucking all of us. We just have a better finance team and we're able to float things and derivatives and, tranches and mortgage jokes goes here. But it's a weird scenario to be in. And what do we have to look forward to? The answer apparently is, it sucks. We've got 2 people, CSMs here. What do we have to look forward to as a player base from CCP that is going to be a cool, positive thing?
Hey, listen, the next expansion, here's the good news. Your angry ex-wife becomes your co-pilot, and she's also your dentist, so it's going to be super fun.
It's going to be great.
Gameplay.
The next expansion, everyone has a 75% chance to get kidney stones in the middle of a fleet.
Right. Hypertension is real. You don't want to let that shit go unchecked. It can really mess with you long term. And it's a concern in EVE Online right now, the reality simulator. So I don't know. Listen, I don't mean to be shitty about it. I don't mean to be flippant about it. I just think that we're kind of in a situation where the Fonz's jumped the shark. Enough is enough. Let's get together. Let's get our feedback to these guys. This has to stop because we have crossed from madness to absolute and complete insanity. And I think everyone would like for the game to be fun again. The war stuff withstanding, the content that we have coming to us out of Reykjavik right now is a whole lot of kicks in the pants, as opposed to like fun and engaging things to do.
And to be honest, the thing is, and I've told CCP this, we had a long meeting on Friday talking about similar stuff. And I've said this before, the content can be boring. It cannot be that engaging, or it can be stuff that is repetitive or whatever. And people will do it as long as they feel like there's a purpose, that there's a reward that they're getting that matters. So you can take, it's the equivalent of the more salt I put on these fries, no matter how mushy they are, it's still going to taste good. If you go ahead and provide a reward that is enticing enough for somebody to engage in that behavior, they'll do it. No matter how boring it is, especially in a video game, because we do that all the time. It's like Merc said, if you have a boring as shit, go and kill 3,000 boars in WoW and you get an achievement, somebody's going to go do that because they want the achievement, because that matters to them. And in EVE, whether it's ISK, it's LP, it's whatever, we get stuff for kill mails. We go fight for kill mails. It has nothing but it's a bragging right, but we go do that stuff. If the rewards are there, people will do it, and you don't have to spend all your time trying to come up with cool, engaging content as long as the rewards there work. That's and I try to explain that, and I feel like we've spent 2020 has been scarcity. It's been almost a year since this started, and Merc and I were talking about it before the show started, and I talked about it last week. We had reduction in the size of anomalies. We have reduction in the spawn rate of anomalies. We have reduction in the size of the asteroids in the anomalies. We had the excavator drones no longer a thing. We had the reduction in the use of Rorquals. We had reduction in ratting anomaly spawn rates. We had they nerfed bosun, so you can't bosun rat anymore. They've nerfed fighters so many times that anybody that's in a super ratting right now is really just asking for it. Now with the drone aggro changes, they changed the AFK way. And also, there's just every single mining redistribution. They've changed the anomalies, the ore inside the anomalies. They've changed where they are. They changed the amount of T1 minerals. They've taken T1 minerals out of moon goo. The list of nerfs that we have eaten this year is long and distinguished. And and like Merc said, we're getting to the point where we're waiting for, the bleeding hemorrhoid update next week. It doesn't, there's just no end in sight. Please, CCP.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Give us something.
I thought that things had kind of settled down after, the great big, let's all go mine isogen in low sec stuff. So that threw me for a loop in the first place. Cause again, I was expecting nerfs to null sec because that's what CCP has done historically a lot. The isogen and low sec thing was weird. Following that up with, oh, hey, by the way, we're doing this drone aggro thing. Like it is a weird and shitty place to be where we collectively are fighting the greatest hell war that has happened in a very, very long time in EVE, right? The war that is taking place right now is epic. And the fact that on all sides of this war, so much of the question of how to continue fighting the war and continuing to try to beat each other to a bloody pulp has come down to speculation of, well, at this point, CCP is cutting people's balls off. At this day, CCP is cutting people's balls off. At this day, people will be more poor. We are getting into situations where people on various sides of this war are in financial trouble, not because we did it to them, not because we blew up so many of their spaceships, though we have blown up lots and lots of spaceships. We have all destroyed many assets in this war. But it's a little shitty to be like, oh, like, so for example, in my perspective, like, let's say that somebody leaves the war because they're broke. Did we really do that? Can we, in the Imperium, we would be delighted to have our enemies obviously peel off, lose the war, vanish from the war, declare victory, especially in the case of like Pan Pam guys who've blown up a ton of our shit, so we can kill Test. We really do want to kill Test. But it's not the same. Right? Like here's one of the things. EVE is one of these games where it is very hard to actually point at something, particularly in the FuzzySoft system, to point at something and say, we won. When you blow up an expensive ship, when you blow up a Keepstar, you can say you won something. With FuzzySoft, with Citadels, when iHubs are trading hands and all this other stuff, in many ways, oftentimes all you can get in the modern era is an acknowledgement from your enemy. Like, okay, you got us. Here's a fucking gold star. We're going to acknowledge it. Or you end up in a situation where some asshole starts calling it the casino war over and over again and infuriates everybody because, you know, whatever spin. But that's a real thing, is that having some sort of an acknowledgement of you did good or you did bad, closing the loop and finding out how you did. What happens in this situation if people end up leaving because of CCP-induced bankruptcy? Like, let's say that Legacy goes bankrupt, except for Test, because they're taking the TTT money and that's great and whatever. Did we really do that? Can the Imperium really like pat ourselves on the back? We can be smug, we can be satisfied. But if CCP bankrupts our enemies, not because we destroyed all their shit and we outfought them over a long period of time, it kind of takes the victory, like it kind of hollows things out a little bit. I'll still take it. I'll take the win. That's great. But it is this really awkward pall over one of the greatest player events that has happened in EVE Online for a long time. On either side that you're involved in this war, we've been doing this for a lot longer than most wars. We have been fighting each other day in, day out for a very long time. And regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, it's kind of lame to have CCP come in and be like, everything is nerfed. Nobody has any money. You can't afford ships anymore. Again, Goonstorm, we've got a finance team. We've got people donating things to us. Like, we're going to be okay, but it's just, it's not how I want. If I can write the story of this war, what I want is we hold out against all of the odds and, you know, whatever. Then we get to a point where we're finally alone with Legacy and we get our revenge against Test. I don't want to win this war because CCP bankrupted our enemies and they go, well, shit, we can't afford ships. It's not fun. That's not cool. It's not satisfying. I don't have anything to go, wow, I want to mount a trophy on my wall. I want to brag about how we fought against all the odds. If CCP just bankrupts everybody, then it's not the same. It's not the same kind of win, you know?
There's this rule when you're talking about, stocks in the United States, for instance, in a public setting like a talk show or a podcast, you have to disclose your positions. It's important that if people realize you're going to be talking about something, you may be biased for one reason or another. It's really similar, and I think it's worth mentioning in the case of the four people here on this show, because I see a lot of like, why don't you cry more about it? Do you think I'm out there fucking mining? Do you think the Mittani mines? Do you think Risk is in a Vexor, in a Haven ever? Do you think these things happen? Let's be serious, right? What you're looking at is people who sit atop these gigantic organizations. I'm the CEO of a corp with over 5,000 people in it. We have a Discord where we sit and bullshit all day long. It's got nothing to do with anything other than a lot of the ways that we've gotten accustomed to having fun together don't exist anymore. Give us something else to do or put them back, right? Because that's the fatal flaw in all of this. I'm not bitching because I'm so sad about the yields of Rorquals or Moon Goo not being on the moons. I've never mooned a goddamn moon in the history of EVE Online. I don't care, right? We're here because we're advocating.
My Rorqual is combat fit.
We're advocating for our people because it's the right thing to do and because a mistake is being made right now. And it couldn't possibly be more apparent.
Exactly. I mean, Torvald is in the chat, and he has been saying this for a while, and I agree with him 100%. Players are tired of being guinea pigs. This is a game. It's a video game. This is not a social experiment. I know as much as folks want it to be a social experiment and they love to write their PhD papers on EVE Online and they interview me and Merck and Mittens and all these guys all the time. Tell us about how this thing works. It's a game. We want to have fun. And if it's not fun because the stuff we used to do to make ISK so we could have fun becomes a problem, that's a big issue. And that's really the bottom line. PvE I've said this before, and I apologize to anybody who plays the game differently from me. But I think as a line member, and yes, I'm a wealthy line member, but I'm a line member nonetheless. I play this game for the PvP. I play it for the fleets. I play it for fighting. I want to go out. I want to hang out with my friends and kill the bad guys and then laugh about it, or get killed and then laugh about it. But I want to have fun with my friends. I want a PvP. I'm not in it to go ratting. But ratting is the thing that people have to do. Mining is the thing that people have to do in order to be able to do the stuff that they like. Unless they have some other means of generating income. And unless you're like the head of a big corp, or you've got a lot of money and can buy Plex, you have to go through it. So that sucks. It sucks for those players. And it sucks that they are the ones that are getting hit the hardest. And it's not really giving them the chance to do what they want to do. If it takes them longer to generate the ISK, to buy the ships and Plex their accounts every month, they're going to stop playing. And yes, I'm fully aware of the fact that EVE has one of the most resilient, and I've said this before, we have one of the most resilient player bases out there. It takes a lot to make somebody quit this game. And even when you quit, you're never really gone because they always get you back. Still, we don't want to lose people because they can't afford it, or they don't want to spend the time doing the boring shit in order to get it to be able to do the stuff that they want. It's like, imagine it's Christmas dinner and there's this big turkey at the end of the table, but before you get a slice of turkey, you gotta eat 15 plates of fucking tuna casserole.
And get hemorrhoids, yeah.
And get roids at the same time. It's not fun. So that's why we're talking about this. And hey, you know what? You can say we sound salty. You can say this is the Salty Meta Show today. We're not salty because of the war. We're really just trying to highlight something that I think needs to be said, and needs to be said in as public a place as possible. And we are the most watched EVE talk show in existence. So most people are going to see this and they're going to recognize we got 2 CSM members here. We got CSM members in the chat. We got the leader of the most storied alliance in the history of EVE, all saying the same thing. Guys, it's time. Give us something, please.
I mean, yeah.
Do you have hemorrhoids? This is like the third time this show you've mentioned it.
I have hemorrhoids.
Coming up. Well, I thought the bloody hemorrhoid joke was particularly entertaining. But
anyway. Jay has some shout outs he wants to do, so we should probably shut up and let Jay talk for a little while because he hasn't.
That's right.
He's been good.
We're going to do this at the end of the show. I don't know if Merck's just going to keep going.
I have one more thing about this just to sort of wrap things up, and then we'll hand things over to you, Jay, which is mentioning Brisk is talking about, like, think that we're trolling or, people or whatever. One of the things that is freaky to me about the situation is, like, look, guys, we've been doing this every Saturday. We get together and when I say we, I'm talking about the Imperium and our enemies fighting in the space war. We get together every Saturday and I say inflammatory stuff and you guys fling shit and we're all throwing shit at each other. And one of the things that freaks me out as a warning sign, as a concern, is when the usual suspects, we're all up here on the Meta Show and we're heard from Lorfs and we're talking about the economy changes. And I say, like, it sucks. It would suck to win the war because CCP bankrupted our enemies, and that's lame. When people in chat are not actually throwing shit at us, right? Our enemies are not throwing shit at us and saying, "Ooh, you're just doing this because of the war." Like there's one or two guys, but like, if this was a few weeks ago, or if this was a lesser issue, and I got up here and Merkelchen, we all said the things that we said, there would be a ton of like goons are whining and crying about this, or like it would be war related. The fact that we collectively, by and large, are here doing our Saturday Meta Show thing and going, yeah, this is weird and lame and creepy and what the fuck, and just the level of, we joke about how Merkelchen shits consensus. the amount of consensus about this on all sides of this war, and as well, people who are not involved in the war, people are like, why are we mining isogen and low-sec? What the fuck are they doing with high-sec mining? Orcas? Are we actually going to do like the drone aggro change? What? The fact that we are collectively here scratching our heads and that there is this level of agreement on sides that are very violently attacking each other in the game in a wartime. And the fact that, here I am, I'm wearing a black shirt and I'm being like super fucking reasonable, man. It's gross. Anyway, whatever. I think that's enough. We've run over on the show. Jay is going to have the last moment. Jay's got some shout outs to give. And then after that, we're going to call it quits. So thank you all. Before I give it over to Jay, thank you all for turning up today. And Merkelchin, I got to say, that was inspirational. Like, I think that you really managed to preach and crystallize something that a lot of us have been thinking for some time now. So, Jay, please, what you got?
I have hemorrhoids. That's one thing I can tell you.
Lucky you.
You
Be
boomers,
thankful, young
maybe.
man.
So I have a few shout outs to give for people that were on the op and some of them that weren't able to make it. So thanks to Kunmi for running the bait op and all that sort of stuff. Shout out to everyone in Israel. Israel is recruiting during the Pwn Zone in game to get recruited by Fohammer. Shout out to Big Brown for leading our competitive Among Us team. And hopefully, if we make the finals, we'll be going to the CSGO finals this year with our captain Mad Cows leading our squad.
Very good.
All right.
Very good.
We are going to get clips of the Merkelchin speech. Don't worry. That is some gold stuff there. We'll make sure to spread that around.
Mark, you have any final thoughts before we wrap
I
show
have a
up?
final
Half
one.
an hour late.
So I forgot to shout out the fastest Chimera pilot in the south. Also, one of our deep cover spies that we used on that op. Shout out to Mary.
Thanks for having me today, boys and girls. It was fun, as always. Hopefully we'll have more fun later tonight.
Very good. We're all looking forward to Saturday night's forum tonight with Merkelchin, who is single-handedly responsible for keeping the Kona Brewing Company going during COVID. So that's his claim to fame. Mittens, you got anything else?
That's it. We're done. Thanks for turning up. And next week, hopefully, we'll be back to more screaming at each other and throwing poop like we normally do.
There you go. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the Meta Show. This was Saturday, November the 28th. I am Brisker Ball, joined by the Matani, Merkelchin, Jay Amazingness, Pinecones, Delinda Est. You stay classy, New Eden.